The dark funnel, I think, is a real thing that buyers are doing a lot of research on their own before they even go to your website. There are third-party sites that they can look at now to see that social proof before they make a purchasing decision. I know, for example, when I talk to MarTech, I'm ready to buy. So a lot of times I'll contact the SDR and say, just put me to your BD because I don't need to be qualified. I'm ready to purchase.
Hey, Janine, good to see you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Good to see you, Ricky. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Janine, I obviously have had the pleasure of working with you. I've known you for a while, but for everyone listening out there, tell us a little bit about you and what gets you out of bed every day.
Yeah, so I am currently the head of demand generation at Lighthouse. Lighthouse rebranded from OTA Insight last November. So that's been a really exciting thing to be part of. We are headquartered out of London with global offices in Ghent, Brussels, Madrid, Sao Paulo, Denver, Dallas, and Singapore. Our product is a leading commercial platform for the travel and hospitality industry. So that is a little bit about what I've been doing. I joined Lighthouse last February.
Nice. You can't seem to get away from these global powerhouses, SaaS businesses, one to another, right?
It's fun to work globally.
Absolutely. We'll dig into that. So before we go there, Janine, maybe tell us a little bit about what got you into marketing in the first place, any specific moments or inspirations that you can look back at?
Yeah, so my background actually wasn't marketing. I did not study it in college. I studied political science. When I graduated from college, I worked for a Massachusetts state senator for a few years. And then I realized I was interested in the private sector and I wanted to learn about what it takes to have a business and run a business. I made a transition from the public sector into the private sector as an executive assistant to a VP of telephony for a large cable operator here in the United States. And as we were building out a telephony business, we had hired on a VP of marketing, and she had asked if I was interested in marketing, and she really took me under her wing and mentored me. And really, it was my first marketing gig as an analyst over 20 years ago, but really appreciate her mentorship and her willing to give me a shot, as well as the VP that I was working for at the time. He obviously bought into the idea of me changing roles and starting my career in marketing.
Yeah. I know you're a big fan of giving back, Janine, too, right? Like you have a lot of mentees. Mentorship is something you've always valued. And it sounded like you had an amazing mentor. So how did that person help you? And what is it that you've learned from that you're now trying to give back to the community and the mentees?
Yeah, I think you don't know what you don't know. And I think having someone that really exposed me to all facets of marketing and really just being there for me and willing to take the time to teach me, really, I couldn't have gotten to where I am today without her. And now that I am 20 something years into my career, it's important for me to give back as she did to me. So I take it very seriously if people personally approach me and ask me to be their mentor. And I enjoy, leading teams and teaching as much as I can with junior marketers. So it's something I've become passionate about. I would say really the last 10 years of my career.
It's pretty awesome. Just to dig a bit deeper on that. So people listening to this episode, Janine, if I'm a young and up and coming sales rep, marketer, product person, whoever I may be, how do I find the right person? Any tips there?
Yeah, I think it's sometimes people you work with. So I think even you're never too old to have a mentor. I recently reached out to my CEO at Lighthouse and asked him for any books he would recommend about business in general and leading companies, which he shared with me. So in some ways, I've somewhat become his mentee, and he was happy to share some books and some learnings there. But I think I would recommend just if there are people you work with that you look up to and you see a career path that's of interest to you, is asking. I think if people can make the time, they will. And I think it's just being open and approaching people and just saying, would you be willing to be my mentor? And for me, it's happened very organically and informally. So as people are having career changes, or if they're trying to break into a role in a certain company, they'll ask if I have any connections there, or what would I do? Or do you mind peeking at my resume to see what recommendations you have? And again, because I had a really great mentor and have had other great mentors throughout my career, I think it's important not to be shy and to take advantage and to ask. The worst they can say is no.
Yeah. Really good practical tips. Janine, coming back to you, and obviously with everything that you've achieved so far in your career, I want to touch on some of the challenges that, in particular, the SaaS businesses face, right? Can you highlight one or two things that you've come across as you've moved around, and what have you done to overcome those?
Yeah. So I think having joined a new organization like I did last February, it's never easy. I think it's really learning about the business or a new industry and being patient with yourself. But I think taking the time to not make rash or quick decisions, but really understanding your ICP, your market, your products, your competitors. And I think really listening, doing a listening tour, getting to know your sales team members, and trying to fit into the organization without making quick changes, I think. And in marketing in particular, and in particular with demand gen, it depends on the type of organization you join and where they are in their lifestyle cycle as a company. So you've got early stage SaaS, you've got medium, depending on the size of the company, the type of revenue you're bringing in, the type of products you're launching. For example, we launched 3 new products last year, which was a lot, and a rebrand. I think it's trying to be flexible. That's the other thing. I think there's so much change in B2B SaaS. So it's learning how to pivot, be flexible, and not being afraid of change. That is probably some of my biggest advice, especially if you're joining a new SaaS startup. And again, depending on the stage they're in.
Yeah, no, I love those tips. So, Janine, you've soaked everything, you've learned the business, you've done the 100 days really well. Some of the key changes then come about in terms of team structure and processes. What's been your experience there, and what are the steps that you normally take?
Yes, we had changes when I joined the company. There was questions of, am I focused on North America? Is my role globally? And we are a global marketing team, and we are a global company operating in a lot of different markets. So part of me coming in and listening and doing that listening tour and learning and understanding was to help understand where we could be more efficient, where maybe we're not set up fully for success today. So a change that started to happen, I would say probably within 4 months of me joining Lighthouse, was that we noticed we lacked digital experience. And I had an employee change, someone left the team marketing team. And I wanted to really focus in on digital expertise because we lacked that throughout the team. So we added someone in August that really has a strong digital background. And with that, we started to question, are we doing campaigns in the right way? Are we doing them as efficiently as we can that will drive as much growth as we can? And the answer was no. So we decided, really, it took almost getting to the end of December. And I had conversations with my boss, my CMO, really probably around October, November, around how do we grow as quickly as we need to? How do we become more efficient? And it was to restructure our demand gen team. We had regional structures in place that we knew we were almost functioning as multiple marketing teams with different agendas, different design requests and content requests. And my idea was, why don't we globalize the demand gen team? We set up a digital global team, and we set up field marketing with a global leader there to support that team. And that's essentially what we've done. So we started to roll that out in January, and it's too early to tell how it's going to go, but the team is really excited. The team is happy about the changes. And I think they see a lot of wins in terms of us being more efficient. And hopefully for our marketing ops team, our content team, and design team, we're easier to work with to get more stuff done more efficiently.
Yeah. Obviously, having gone through the similar exercise with you at a previous businesses that we both used to work. So decentralized to centralized. Can you explain the concept a little bit for the listeners? Because you're right. In some cases, a lot of people listening in would go, APAC market is so different than the North American market. Therefore, someone running digital channel outside of this region, it may not particularly go well because they're not in tune with the nuances and the ICP. However, it's not always the case, as you touched on. What steps you took to ensure that there are no glitches along?
Yeah, so I meet with sales leadership regularly in each region. Additionally, we have a field marketer that is regional focused. So if we're doing something that is really specific for events in that market or a campaign in that market that needs to be in a specific language, we're working with field marketing and the sales leaders to make sure that we're meeting everyone's needs, that we're supporting our growth goals and pipeline, and making sure, again, this gets into alignment between sales and marketing to really make sure we're aligned, that we're talking about the goals, that when our goals were set for 2024, that was done hand in hand at the C-suite level. But then my boss, the CMO, and our CRO, they meet every week. They're looking at our pipeline goals and we're creating programs to help fuel that growth. So obviously in each market, we have different goals and we're constantly communicating. This evening, I'm meeting with our leaders in the APAC region. So it's just continuing to communicate, to build that collaboration and to help get more efficient. But you always want to take regional differences into consideration as you're building campaigns from a digital perspective. But there will always be a need to have a level of being market focused for that particular region.
Yeah, makes a ton of sense. Janine, just want to go back to the point that you raised earlier. You're in the execution mode, so I assume you're looking at a lot of different metrics. Marketing, I've always found are way more metrics driven than perhaps sales organizations are. They've always been step ahead. For you and your team, what are some of the most important metrics that you track in your funnel? If in fact, I give a lot of credit to you. You're the one who really got me into the tofu, mofu, bofu kind of funnel optimization. So talk to us a little bit about that, Janine, and what are you and your teams are tracking?
Yeah. So I think it's a shift for a smaller marketing team, really growing to a medium sized marketing team and really looking at the funnel. I think me coming in that has done demand gen, and demand gen's a new function in particular for our company. It's thinking through the funnel and making sure we have coverage through the funnel for each audience we're targeting for specific products. Metrics in particular, I'm always looking at traffic. Are we generating enough traffic to key pages on our websites or key landing pages that then the lead has the opportunity to fill out the form? And are we doing things to drive people through the funnel from a lead MQL to SQL to closed one conversion rate perspective? I'm constantly looking at dashboards in Salesforce. I'm looking at metrics for engagement, whether that's in HubSpot. And then for paid media, I'm also looking at GA4 and understanding what's happening in terms of impressions and engagement, as well as looking at ROAS on the paid media side. And also for our events team, making sure we're hitting the right ROI that is set up when we look at our events throughout the years. And then, Ricky, you and I have talked in the past around it's not just the quantity of the lead, it's the quality of the lead. So it's constantly looking at these deep dives around our data and performance. And that's essentially why I love marketing, because it is all test and learn, do more of what works, do less of what doesn't work. And I find it really fun as well as challenging. And that's essentially what I love about demand generation.
Yeah. There's a lot of science and engineering and almost this whole experimentation methodology that goes behind marketing, especially when it comes to digital channel, right, Janine?
Yes.
You talked about A/B testing and you've thrown a bunch of acronym, which there is a lot of in SaaS and especially marketing, MQL, SQL, ROAS, ROI, and whatnot. But give us a window into how do you identify areas of the funnel that require optimization or A/B testing? What's your process there?
Yeah. So I think it's understanding what you have in market and for how long is it, and is it against the right audiences? Do you know enough about your ICP? For example, if you're launching a new product, it's really understanding where to find those people to market to, number one. And you could have a target list, you may not have a target list. And then I think it's, okay, what are the most important things of my go-to market strategy? And what are the key things to learn? I think sometimes people get caught up in overcomplicating A/B testing. And I think you've really got to bucket your audiences and identify what is the goal? What are you trying to learn? You don't want to overcomplicate it by testing too much. So is the goal to see how these two creatives performed against one another in ads, paid media, LinkedIn social, for example? Or is it looking at SEM ads, and are there language tweaks that you could make in your SEM ads to test and see which resonates more, which one is causing more traffic and more form fills for whatever you're trying to promote? A/B testing goes into every channel, whether it's paid media, whether it's email, whether it's website testing, whether it's your landing pages, whether it's your forms. So I think being really clear of what the end result is, and then also, are you looking for directional learnings? Are you looking for statistical significance? So I think depending on your audience for each market and what it really depends. But my piece of advice was keep it simple, focus on really not more than one thing you really want to walk away from with those learnings.
Yeah, I love those. Janine, you've touched on a number of things there. And in SaaS, most businesses, in my experience, suffer with this whole dump and run mindset, right? Whether it be new leads, new customers, people are always just trying to move on to the next bunch of leads, next new customer. How do you nurture leads? Is the point I'm trying to get to. There's so much good stuff that comes in. So many organizations do one or two touch points, and then after that they dismiss those leads. What have been some of the campaigns or some of the ways that you've ensured that you're constantly nurturing these, and then you're staying on top of these buyers' minds?
So I think it's being really looking at your ecosystem of channels and making sure you're in all the channels. And then again, using data to optimize campaigns. But I think the most common way is to nurture your leads. There's ABM now, there's email, there's retargeting. I think it's really, again, testing maybe a nurturing strategy and understanding based on your target audience. When they're coming to you, are they hot, warm, or cold? There's usually indicators of where they fall. There could be lead scoring and grading based on how engaged they've been with your brand. But I think you always want to be communicating and nurturing, whether that's an existing customer that you're sharing new information about a product enhancement or an upgrade to a product or an opportunity to cross sell or upsell them. So there's the customer segment there. Then you've got net new leads you could be looking at and how you bring them into the funnel and how do you stay top of mind. I think we underestimate the number of contacts that need to happen before someone converts. And again, it goes into that being a data-driven marketer and testing and learning. How many contacts does it take to get a meeting and then actually get someone to buy? So it's again using these metrics to help understand, am I nurturing my leads in the right way? What if I add in a webinar to invite them to, or a VIP dinner, or some sort of special email marketing strategy? It could be a lot of different things. But I think, again, testing and learning, knowing your ICP or your target audience, and looking at key metrics to understand what's happening in your funnel. It's a full-time job, really, in terms of not just running the campaigns, but looking at the data and the story those campaigns tell you.
Yeah, it's more than a full-time job. Hey, every organization that I've ever come across in SaaS will tell you this, that there are no silos in their business, and our sales and marketing team as one. And it always looks good on the surface. You peel back a couple of layers, and there's normally misalignment just because of the way the reporting or the structure. Can you share a little bit from your perspective, some of the most effective ways that you found to improve their sales and marketing alignment in an organization when you've either gone in new or you've been there for a while?
I think it's always, from my perspective, it's having agreed upon targets that we're working together on, especially sales and marketing. I think you've got certain levers that drive growth. And I think it's being curious about each one of those levers, whether that's your sales cycle length, your win rates, the number of opportunities, your deal size. And I think a lot of it is when I joined OTA Insight, now Lighthouse, I had the opportunity to travel with some leadership on the revenue operations side and the sales side before a corporate meeting. And I took advantage of that. I barely knew some of these team members, had the invitation to spend some time in Dublin with them before we had a management offsite. And I took advantage of it. And that can't be replaced. Those 3 days I had with those team members. And it created a framework of trust, transparency. We're in this together. We have similar goals, but we're focused on different things to get to those goals. And I really meet regularly with all sales leadership in every region, even though the time zones aren't always friendly. But it's really important to stay aligned and I think have those communications and also to have difficult conversations as well in terms of, I think one thing I'm always focused on attribution. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. As long as it's closed won, we're hitting our growth goals. It doesn't matter. We all play a role in our sales process. But I think it's continuing to be aligned with those goals. And if priorities shift as they do, it's making sure you're communicating and talking to one another.
That's it, right? Like communication, reiteration, and just ensuring that everyone's on the same page, and goals and KPIs and OKRs play such a big part. Janine, a lot of people listening in are normally quite interested in hearing about leaders who jump on, about their days, about the week. Can you fill us in on that? You mentioned that you've got a global team that you work with. You probably have early starts, late finishes. Give us a window into what Janine's week looks like.
Yes. Right now, I have a lot of team meetings of my new centralized global demand gen team. Normally, we will meet bi-weekly, but knowing that we are a newly formed team, we met last week, we meet this week. I am part of our senior management team. So this morning, we had our first management team meeting of the year, which is great. We have an opportunity to talk to our C-suite as well as other leaders globally, and the CEO always facilitates that meeting. Additionally, I have one-on-ones throughout the globe. I went from that meeting into a product specific meeting that we're moving our product into a new market. So we had some market planning. And then it's supporting my team. I've got a diverse group of marketers with different skills and backgrounds. So it's being there to support them and removing any obstacles for them. My team knows they can come to me with anything, and my job is to help solve any issues they may be having to move their projects forward. It's really throughout the day, it's whoever needs me, I kind of pivot. I do have a full day of meetings, which I'm trying
Yeah.
to put more innovation or working time in because the meetings can be a lot to manage and we try to focus on having healthy work life balance, and trying to manage that is sometimes challenging. But I think it's with a new team structure, it's making sure people are clear of here's our objectives in Q1, here are objectives for 2024. We have very specific things we're trying to do in Q1. How do we get there? How do we better collaborate with marketing operations, sales operations? I've been in a lot of meetings to talk about enhanced reporting around the funnel, and excited to see some of that come to life to help us enable marketing to do better, to find more leads, higher quality leads, to bring them into pipelines. But I think that's one of the things I love about my job is the diversity of things that I get to be part of and support my team with projects they're leading.
Sounds like a fun role. No 2 days are the same. Of course, busy role, a lot of different things that you're juggling with strategic versus tactical items. You mentioned something about reporting there. So reporting is another one of those things that depending on how the data is actually then given to you, a lot of people interpret it differently. So in your current organization, Janine, how do you ensure that data is firstly accurate and reliable, and you all are reading it the same way? Because a lot of the decision making process is relying on this, right? So, do you have a dedicated RevOps team and marketing ops or sales ops? What is that?
Yeah. So when I joined the company, we had a really strong revenue operations team, which is great. That to me is indication of like good health in the company when I was interviewing. Secondly, we have a marketing operations team as well that is helping really make sure our campaigns are set up correctly. and that we're able to report out them on the right way. For example, one of the meetings I had this morning was to talk about our UTM code to make sure we can track at the channel level, at the level of detail we would like to. Obviously, sales and marketing come up with all the great ideas we want to, but it's really having a strong revenue operations and marketing operations team in place that they really are intimate with our data, our Salesforce structure, to make sure we are reporting out correctly on our results as well as what is happening in the funnel.
Yeah, nice. Hey, I seem to be hogging the spotlight and seem to be asking every question. I have one more, then I'll hand it over to Graham. I'm always curious, and you know how much I love the whole app stack or tech stack, Janine. What's your current tech stack at Lighthouse? Which apps do you use?
Yeah, so we use Salesforce. We are using HubSpot for our marketing programs. And then we're using a lot of different smaller tools as we're starting to expand our marketing activities. But I would say those are the big ones. Then, obviously, for paid media, we're using Google Ads and Bing and things like that, LinkedIn, but we're also using some other reporting resources off of that. And then the Mark tech stack is so overwhelming, I would say. It's constantly changing, whether that's video and video editing or podcast and podcast editing. We just had a deep dive into all the different marketing channels and where we're looking to expand them. But I would say those are the main ones, but it's constantly looking at, do we need an ABM platform? Should we be looking at this or looking at that? It's hard to stay up to date with how much this is evolving and changing. When I started my career working for a digital agency for almost 9 years, that was the birth of the internet, and email marketing. And I was in marketing operations, and these self-service platforms have come so far through the years. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And they're always coming up. AI now, it's everywhere. You can use it for design. You can use it for content. You can use it for copy. It's crazy.
I just get absorbed into the conversation. I'm not thinking about what question to ask. I'm just enjoying it. It's been awesome to hear all that. Janine, I'm like a numbers guy, not naturally, but it's been learned through my career. I used to just run at things, and then I was like, we can do this a bit better. In terms of numbers, when you look at your funnel and you spoke about attribution along the chain, right? So you guys work your butts off to get leads in and hit your numbers. And then there's a handoff to a sales team at some point, and then they take the flag. How do you specifically, I'm thinking through, we work with a lot of kind of earlier stage businesses at sort of 5 mil mark, and we help them grow their go to market, right? Like we build that and introduce concepts like demand gen and outbound and inbound and explain all these things and work to build it. How do you look at conversions? So if you just the traditional kind of MQL, SQL into sort of closed one, how do you look at percentage? How do you look at conversion? Do you have a percentage that you try and hit? Is it a number you try and get to? How do you do that? And then how successful are you without obviously giving away too much? But yeah, I think because you count the number of founders we talk to, we go, what's your conversion rate? Like, 99%, 100%. Everyone I talk to buys. I mean, like the evangelical founder. So of course you sell everything, but we need to build a team around you. They're not going to hit numbers like 100%. They might hit 30. So what are those percentages that you like? What do you want to hit versus where are you at? That's my first question.
So I think it depends really on your industry is what I would say. So I think I've worked in a lot of different industries, and those metrics are different. I would say specifically really looking at your ICP, really looking at what the product is. Is it a core product? Is it a newer product? Obviously, newer products, you're not going to hit those same kind of metrics. So I believe to look at some key baseline indicators and using that and tracking that. And then once you've got a baseline is, okay, how do we improve that? And it depends on your sales cycle as well as what are you doing from a demand gen perspective to move people through the funnel. So I think it's to baseline it initially by getting some early data and then saying, okay, now we're here with our MQL to SQL conversion rate, SQL to close one conversion rate, or SQO sometimes. And I think it's constantly looking at those week over week, understanding against each segment or audience that you're going after, because it does differ for us depending on, we've got some really newer products that we launched last year that are still really early stage, that we're not at the adoption we would like it to be. So it's constantly testing against it and seeing what is working. If some of the things we're trying is increasing those rates, obviously you want them as strong as they can be, and you want to see them getting better. So I think that really is, again, it's one big experiment, marketing. So it's testing, learning, documenting where you're at with those conversion rates, and then trying new things to see if you can move the needle to see them increase. Does that answer your question?
I won't pressure you for numbers, but yeah, it is an ever moving kind of target, right? But you do have to set kind of goals. I try to work around that 30 to 40% number. It seems to generally land somewhere around there, depending on where you're at. Is that realistic in the big end of town as you move further north? In your ARR, does that number go down? Do you like to keep that number somewhere around there?
Yeah, I would say ideally we wanted at least 30%. But again, I think it's different depending on where we are with the life cycle of the product and where we are with a go-to market strategy and how many markets we're in. Again, you've got all these levers to push things through that funnel, and there's a lot of different average deal size. So
and as your sort of MQL number goes up, obviously your conversion percentage goes down. So you can be super successful in bringing them in initially, and then you end up having not such a good conversion rate, but really it's a much higher number in the beginning. So yeah, I guess I'm just trying to get out, as we build out that there becomes a curve. So when we're talking to founders and listening to the podcast going, oh, I convert 100%, and it's going, yeah, but once your machine's churning, you're going to be doing 30 to 40 if you're doing well. So get your head into that space, build your numbers around that, because the numbers coming into their sales or revenue models, they're like, in their minds, they can't get away from that. I convert everything, but it's not about you. And when it's not about you anymore, it's a bit harder to sell. So that's really helpful. Thank you.
Janine, so a lot of the people listening in the early stage, and my experience to date has been that obviously product is the number one thing they concentrate on. Not long after, sales seem to be the second thing, right? It's a founder-led sales. But what we've found from having various discussions, marketing seems to be like distant third. Whereas Sean and I and Graham, we all think, in fact, a lot of organizations should actually be concentrating on brand awareness, brand strategy, personal brand. So to pick your brain here a little bit, you've been around the track for a while. If I was a startup founder, what should my first marketing team look like? What are the pieces of the puzzle should I be going?
My suggestion would be, obviously, product marketing is a key component to take that product strategy and build a go-to market strategy, understanding your IC and being able to build programs to test out what your product management team thought would be, or your technology team thought would be a good fit for market, or that there's a gap in market. So I think having that product marketing role is really critical. I think your brand is also critical in terms of how are you different from your competitors and evangelizing that through different channels. Obviously, content, and whether that's video or blog content or white papers, is critical to have sales support and sales collateral, in addition to, again, evangelizing your brand. So I think having someone focused from a brand perspective is really critical. Some of these functions you can outsource, but I think also as you build your brand, you want to have consistency in various markets and make sure that your brand story is consistent, your design is consistent, and then you want to then execute. I think having a marketing operations or revenue operations function to support your CRM so then you can learn would be another critical component. And then I think having someone from a digital side to be able to use the tools you have to execute emails, posts, social media posts, and maybe it's an event marketer to basically, as you're building an event strategy, or maybe early stage is I want the sales team to attend some events and make some connections. So I think that would be another critical area if you're building out a marketing team. I think you need certain functions to make the engine work. And you also need leadership. You need someone that can help solve problems for you and get the team aligned with sales, because that's a critical component of success. And I think those would probably be the key areas I would look to hire first if I was brought in as like a VP of marketing or a CMO for an early stage B2B SaaS company.
Yeah, nice.
So this is just for you, not generally speaking, but there's so many things going on right now. You spoke about video, and that's like the explosion of the way and the changes in people and how they watch content, view content, absorb it. What excites you? It doesn't have to necessarily be something that will work or won't work or take over the industry, but what's a piece of the job? Like we've gone from emails and then SMS or then social media and search engine. That was bound to happen. Yeah. What part of it? What emerging tech? What's something you got your eye on that you're just excited about?
I think ABM in particular, because the dark funnel, I think, is a real thing that buyers are doing a lot of research on their own before they even go to your website. There are third-party sites that they can look at now to really see that social proof before they make a purchasing decision. I know, for example, when I talk to MarTech, I am pretty far, I'm ready to buy. So a lot of times I'll contact the SDR and say, just put me to your BD because I don't need to be qualified. I'm ready to purchase. So I think it's continuing to see that evolve and shed light on the dark funnel and how to use lead scoring and grading to get someone identified and then be able to retarget them, if you will. So I think ABM is one. I think AI and things like ChatGPT and how we're using that today from a marketing perspective is exciting and interesting and very new. So I think we're trying to, do we use it? Do we not use it? Does it make sense? And marketing teams are lean. So you don't have a massive content team. So I think it's using some of these technologies to where you can't pay for an expensive agency to do some of the work yourself and to be more efficient. I think at the end of the day, we're all asked to do less with more. And I think it's how do we continue to push it using marketing? I'd say those are probably the biggest ones. And then demand gen is constantly changing.
So much goodness there, Janine.